The sun beat down on the all-inclusive resort in Cancun, the shimmering turquoise ocean a stark contrast to the chaotic knot in my stomach. Noah and I had been practically inseparable since kindergarten, a bond forged in shared playground mishaps and bad pop-punk phases. We understood each other with a single glance, always on the same wavelength, partners in crime who never judged the other's questionable decisions. But lately, something had shifted. A current of unspoken desire crackled between us, turning our easy camaraderie into a minefield of longing. That just friends the label felt like a flimsy disguise, barely concealing the powerful attraction simmering beneath the surface. It was a total mindfuck, and I was pretty sure I wasn't imagining it. I just had no idea how to even begin to talk about it. This trip was supposed to be legendary. Noah's bachelor party, our first foray into adult milestones after years of teenage shenanigans, with the whole crew tagging along. Booze flowed freely, the beach volleyball games were relentless, and the resort was a non-stop party zone. But ever since we arrived, the air between me and Noah felt thick with unspoken tension, a humid pressure mirroring the tropical climate. Sharing rooms, sharing laughs, it all felt different, charged with an undercurrent of something more. I tried to play it cool, but my heart hammered a frantic rhythm whenever he was near, especially when he was showing off those ridiculously sculpted arms during a game of beach volleyball. I couldn't help myself, I kept sneaking glances, really checking him out, thinking thoughts that definitely didn't belong in the best friend handbook. The more I tried to ignore it, the more intense it became. Every time our eyes met, it felt like a jolt of electricity, a silent acknowledgement of the undeniable pull between us. We were lounging by the swim-up bar, the sugary sweetness of the cocktails doing little to soothe my frayed nerves, when Noah turned, a teasing grin playing on his lips. "Yo, what's up with you, man? You've been spacey all day." My heart leaped, like I'd been caught staring at the forbidden candy. "Yeah, well, just tired, man," I mumbled, hoping my reddening cheeks weren't giving me away. "Total giveaway." Noah gave me a skeptical look, but he didn't push it. That was his move, he knew when to tease and when to back off. But tonight, escape felt impossible. The tension had been building for weeks, and it felt like it was about to explode like a shaken-up bottle of tequila. Later that night, after a long day of drinking and sun, Noah caught me walking alone along the beach. The moonlight cast long shadows, the waves whispering secrets to the sand. He fell into step beside me, invading my personal space in a way that sent shivers down my spine. "Come on, dude, I know you. What's really going on?" His voice was soft, almost hesitant, but his eyes were intense, like he was trying to dissect my soul. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst, and I knew I couldn't hold it in any longer, especially with him standing right there, looking at me like that. My mouth went dry as I tried to find the words. "Look, there's something I've got to tell you about us," I managed to get out, shoving my shaking hands into my pockets. "Things feel different lately. I can't explain it, but it's been on my mind constantly." The waves crashed against the shore, the only sound cutting through the silence. The words hung in the air, and a wave of panic washed over me. Did I just ruin everything? Noah was just staring at me, a look on his face like he was trying to decipher an ancient code. Then, completely unexpected, he reached out and gently touched my arm, sending a surge of heat through my body. "Hey," he whispered, his voice barely audible above the waves, "me too." I stared at him, dumbfounded. Wait, is this for real? The beach suddenly felt too small, like the world was shrinking around us. Noah just confessed to feeling the same thing. I was caught in a whirlwind of oh my god, yes, and holy crap, what now? This was Noah, my best friend, my brother in all but blood, and here we were, standing on the precipice of chaos. He moved closer, and I swore the air was electric, charged with anticipation. I could feel the heat radiating off his body, and my heart was doing somersaults when his fingers brushed my arm again. Is this really happening? Next thing I knew, Noah was leaning in, his face just inches from mine, waiting for some kind of confirmation. Time seemed to slow to a crawl, and then, without thinking, I gave him the signal. I leaned forward, closing the distance, and he kissed me. His lips were soft and hesitant at first, but then they deepened, a silent explosion of pent-up desire. My brain short-circuited. All the worries, all the anxieties, vanished. It was just me and Noah, caught in our own little universe under the Cancun moonlight. But then, reality came crashing back. Someone could see us. I gasped, pulling back, trying to regain my composure, my heart hammering like a hummingbird's wings. Whoa, what are we doing? I stammered, backing away and running my hand through my hair, my panic spiking. Noah just stood there, a strange, unreadable expression on his face. No clue, he said, sounding just as lost as I felt, but doesn't it feel right? Did it? My whole body was buzzing like I downed a gallon of Red Bull, but my brain was screaming, danger. This was Noah, my best friend since forever. Cross this line, and there's no going back. It'll ruin everything. But then, Noah stepped forward, his hand gently resting on my shoulder. When I looked up, his eyes were filled with a fierce determination. We're not going to mess anything up, he said, his voice calm and reassuring. I've been feeling this way for ages. This isn't some random, drunken thing. I want this. And I know you do too. My heart skipped a beat because, yeah, he was right. I did want this. But admitting it out loud felt like stepping off a cliff blindfolded. All the feelings I'd been suppressing were bubbling to the surface, and I felt completely out of control. I'm so lost right now, I whispered, the words barely audible. It felt like I was being torn in two. One part of me wanted to surrender to the desire, kiss him again, let the chips fall where they may. But the other part was paralyzed by fear, terrified of the unknown consequences. Noah's hand slid down to my wrist, his touch grounding me, somehow calming the storm raging inside. Hey, we don't have to figure everything out right now, he said, his voice gentle. We can just see what happens. I swallowed hard, still hesitant. But what if someone finds out? What if they see us? We'll be discreet, Noah interjected, his gaze unwavering. No one has to know, yet. His words sent a thrill of excitement coursing through me, but they were also heavy with the weight of secrecy. Keeping this hidden felt dangerous, but maybe that was part of the allure, the forbidden excitement that fueled the fire between us. Standing there with Noah so close, I could feel his warm breath on my face. I knew, deep down, that I wanted to take the plunge, to dive headfirst into the unknown. Okay, I said, trying to sound more casual than I felt, my heart doing a frantic tango in my chest. Noah's face lit up, his eyes sparkling with anticipation, and next thing I knew, I was pulling him in for another kiss. This kiss was different from the first, bolder, more confident, like we both knew what we wanted now and weren't afraid to go after it. He had his hands on my waist, his touch sending shivers down my spine, and it felt like my whole body was on fire. The moonlight danced on the waves, the gentle roar of the ocean creating a symphony of desire, and for a brief moment, it felt like we were the only two people in the world. But it wasn't just about the kissing, the physical attraction, you know? It was about all the shared jokes, the late-night talks, the unspoken understanding that had always been there, lurking beneath the surface. It was like everything finally clicked into place, and I couldn't believe it had taken us this long to figure it out. But then, reality started crashing the party again. Oh my God, we're at a bachelor party! Like, anyone could totally see us! My heart was racing as I pulled back, gasping for air, my eyes darting around nervously to see if anyone was watching. We need to stop, I managed, my voice tight with anxiety. Someone could. But Noah gave me a small, reassuring smile and shook his head. Relax, everyone's either trashed or passed out in their rooms. Nobody's out here. I wanted to believe him, but the knot in my stomach tightened with each passing second. I took a step back, even though every fiber of my being yearned to stay close to him. "We can't do this here," I said, trying to sound sensible, trying to regain control. "It's too risky." Noah looked at me for what felt like an eternity, his eyes searching mine, then he nodded slowly, a flicker of understanding passing across his face. "Yeah, you're right," he conceded, his voice barely a whisper, "but this isn't over, right?" The way he said it, the unspoken question hanging in the air, made my heart skip a beat. Was this just a fleeting moment, a drunken experiment fueled by hormones and boredom, or was it something more profound, something that could potentially change everything? I didn't have the answers yet, but I knew, with absolute certainty, that I didn't want it to end there. "No," I whispered, meeting his gaze, "it's not over." When Noah smiled, it felt like a promise, a silent agreement that we would figure this out together, no matter what obstacles lay ahead. But even as I whispered those words, a wave of fear washed over me, because I knew, in my heart, that we were diving into something wild and unpredictable, something that we might not be able to control. We grabbed a couple of beers from the cooler and headed back to the party, trying to act nonchalant, but, oh man, the tension was still so thick you could cut it with a machete. I knew, instinctively, that things were about to get way more complicated, but Noah was right. We weren't done. And I had no clue back then, as we walked hand in hand back towards the bonfire, that things were about to get even more intense than that stolen kiss on the beach, because once you cross that line, once you taste the forbidden fruit, there's no turning back. After our moment by the fire, everything went off the rails. I tried so hard to act normal, you know, just two best friends hanging out, playing it cool like nothing had changed. But who was I kidding? Every time I saw Noah, my mind was flooded with images of the kiss, the feel of his hands on my waist, the taste of his lips on mine. It was like an invisible rope was tying us together, and no matter how hard I tried to maintain the casual facade, I couldn't shake it. The next day was a total blur of confusion and butterflies. Noah and I barely acknowledged the kiss, but it hung between us like a giant, neon sign. We still did our usual routine, messing around, joking with the guys, playing beach games, but there was this crazy, new energy simmering beneath the surface. We'd catch each other's eye across the crowded beach, or our hands would accidentally brush during a volleyball game, and it was like, zap. Electricity. We were testing the waters, seeing what we could get away with, pushing the boundaries of our newfound connection, but I knew, deep down, that it could only last so long. Then came this one afternoon that changed everything, forever altering the course of our friendship. We were all hanging out by the resort pool, a cacophony of laughter and splashing water, and Noah was showing off his diving skills, doing flips and cannonballs to the amusement of the crowd. I was sitting on the edge of the pool, laughing along with everyone else, but I was also shamelessly checking him out, admiring the way the water cascaded off his toned body, the way the sunlight glinted in his eyes. I knew, in that moment, that I was a goner, completely and irrevocably lost. Most of the others were too drunk or distracted to notice, but the air between me and Noah was thick with unspoken desire, a palpable tension that vibrated through the very air around us. It was like a giant, flashing sign above our heads, broadcasting our secret longing to the entire resort. We were halfway through a ridiculous game of beer pong when Noah nailed a shot, the ping-pong ball spinning wildly before landing squarely in my cup. Beer splashed everywhere, and we both erupted in laughter, but then Noah leaned in close, his breath warm against my ear, and whispered, "Meet me by the cabanas in 5. I need to tell you something." My heart did this weird, fluttering thing, a mixture of anticipation and dread, and I knew, instinctively, that this was different, that this conversation would change everything. I nodded, trying to maintain a cool exterior, and casually made my way towards the secluded cabanas, the weight of the impending moment pressing down on me. The second I slid open the door, Noah was there, waiting for me, his face etched with a serious expression. "Look, man, I can't keep playing this game. It's driving me crazy," he said, his voice low and intense. My heart skipped a beat, like I knew this confrontation was coming, but I still wasn't prepared for the raw honesty in his eyes. "Yeah," I mumbled, nervously fiddling with the door handle, trying to avoid his gaze. "Yes, we do." Noah looked right at me, his eyes unwavering. "Look, things have been kind of weird since that kiss by the bonfire, right? There's something to it, right? I need to know, is this just something that happened because we were drunk and bored, a fleeting moment of experimentation, or is it something real, something deeper?" That hit me hard, like a punch to the gut. I hadn't really allowed myself to consider the possibility that it could be more than just a drunken mistake. All I knew was that I couldn't stop thinking about him, replaying the kiss in my mind, fantasizing about what could be. But was it real? Was I ready to dive headfirst into the unknown, risking everything for a chance at something potentially life-changing? I took a deep breath, my hands trembling. "I don't know," I said quietly, the words barely audible above the sound of the waves. "My head's been a total mess." Noah's face softened, his intense gaze replaced with a look of genuine empathy, and he reached out to gently touch my hand. "Hey, I understand," he said, keeping his voice low, as if afraid someone might overhear. "But I need to know if this is the same for you, because if this is just a one-off thing, if you're not feeling it as deeply as I am, I've got to know before I fall too hard, before I get my hopes up." That sent my heart into overdrive, accelerating from a gentle flutter to a full-blown drum solo. Was he saying he wanted more? That he was considering a future, a real relationship? I'd been so consumed with fear, so terrified of ruining our friendship, that I hadn't even entertained the thought that he might actually want this too. "I don't want it to be a one-time thing," I managed to stammer, trying to sound more confident than I felt, even though my heart was threatening to explode. "But I'm still lost here. What does this mean for us? What will people think?" Noah let out a deep breath, like he'd been holding it in for an eternity, his shoulders visibly relaxing. He gave me a small, reassuring smile, and took my other hand, holding both of them tightly in his. "We don't have to figure it all out right now," he said, his voice laced with sincerity. "We can take it slow, one step at a time. Just tell me, are you in this with me?" I met his gaze, searching for any sign of doubt or hesitation, but all I saw was unwavering honesty, a deep and genuine desire that mirrored my own. And in that moment, all the fear, all the anxiety, seemed to dissipate, replaced by a quiet certainty. "Yeah," I nodded, the word barely a whisper, but it resonated with the weight of truth. "Yeah, I'm in." Just like that, all the weird tension that had been building between us seemed to dissolve, replaced by something infinitely better, a sense of shared purpose, a connection that transcended the boundaries of friendship. Noah's face lit up with this mischievous grin, the playful spark that had always drawn me to him, as he leaned in close, his hand tracing a line down my leg. "Sweet," he whispered, his voice low and husky, his lips just inches from my face. "'Cause I've been dying to do this all day." Next thing I knew, he was kissing me again, and this time, there was no hesitation, no holding back. We both surrendered to the desire, allowing ourselves to get lost in the moment, and it was electric, a whirlwind of pent-up longing and raw passion. His lips were urgent, demanding, like he'd been holding back for so long, and I kissed him back with equal fervor, grabbing his neck to pull him closer, until we were tangled up in each other's arms, our clothes getting rumpled, the world outside fading away. Everything else disappeared, and we were enveloped in our own private bubble, a haven of touch and taste and unspoken promises. His hands were everywhere, caressing my skin, making me feel like I was on fire, and the intensity of the moment grew with each passing second. It was like being drunk, but better, a heightened state of awareness, a sensory overload that I never wanted to end. But then, inevitably, reality decided to crash the party, again. My brain, still partially functioning despite the overwhelming pleasure, started screaming at me, like, "What are we doing? Are we seriously doing this? Right here, right now? What if someone finds us? What if we get caught? What if we totally destroy everything we've ever had? The panic hit me hard, a cold wave of fear washing over me, and I had to pull back, breaking the kiss, gasping for air. Wait, hold up, we can't, I said, my voice breathless and shaky. Noah looked at me like I had just slapped him across the face, his eyes filled with confusion and disappointment. Why not? We're alone. No one's going to see us. That's not the point, I said, running my hands through my hair, my anxiety spiraling out of control. What if someone does see us? What if we totally wreck everything, Noah? Our friendship, our lives, everything. You know how people are. They'll judge us, they'll gossip, they'll make our lives a living hell. Noah's jaw tightened, his eyes hardening with a mixture of anger and hurt. So, what? You want to stop? You want to pretend this never happened? I froze up, caught between what I desperately wanted, the raw, undeniable pull towards Noah, and what scared me half to death, the potential consequences of our actions, the judgment and disapproval of the outside world. The truth was, I didn't want to stop. I wanted Noah, with every fiber of my being. I wanted this, whatever this was, but the thought of everyone finding out, of having our secret exposed, was absolutely terrifying. I don't know, I barely whispered, the words lost in the deafening roar of my own fear. The room fell silent, the only sound the gentle lapping of the waves against the shore, and my words hung in the air, heavy with uncertainty and doubt. Noah looked down, avoiding my gaze, and I couldn't tell what he was feeling, couldn't read the emotion swirling behind his guarded expression. For a brief, agonizing moment, I thought I had ruined everything, that my fear had pushed him away, that I had destroyed the fragile connection that had begun to blossom between us. But then, he reached over and gently placed his hand over mine, his touch a silent reassurance. Listen, he said, his voice low and earnest, I don't want to lose you, I don't want to lose what we have, but I also don't want to hide who I am, I can't stop being me. I can't keep pretending nothing's happening here, because it is happening. Those words hit me hard, resonating with a painful truth. Noah was right. We couldn't keep running from whatever this thing was, from the undeniable connection that had drawn us together. We couldn't live our lives in fear, hiding our true feelings from the world. But I was still terrified of what might happen if people did see us, if our secret was revealed, if we were judged and ostracized. I don't want to lose you either, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, my eyes pleading with him to understand. But this is so scary, Noah, you know? It's like we're walking a tightrope with no safety net. Noah squeezed my hand, offering a small, reassuring smile, his eyes radiating understanding and compassion. Hey, we've got this, he said, his voice filled with quiet confidence. We'll take it slow, one step at a time, and we'll face whatever comes our way together, as long as we have each other and know that we are here to stay. Baby steps? Yeah, I nodded, a flicker of hope igniting in my chest, my heart doing a tentative backflip. Yeah, baby steps. This won't break us. We will get through this. The tears welled in his eyes, and he squeezed my hand a little tighter. There was nothing to it but to do it. Noah's smile made everything better, and when he leaned in for another kiss, all the tension that had been building inside me seemed to melt away, replaced by a surge of hope and a renewed sense of commitment. For once, I felt like maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay. After that night, things went completely nuts. But like, in a good and also terrifying way. Noah and I were basically living this secret life, a clandestine love affair unfolding beneath the guise of friendship, and it was both exhilarating and nerve-wracking. When it was just us, when we were alone and free to be ourselves, it was pure magic, the realization of a long-held dream. But then we'd have to rejoin the rest of the guys, put on our masks and pretend that nothing was different, and that constant charade was incredibly stressful. But here's the thing, we couldn't stop, even if we wanted to. Every time we'd accidentally touch, or brush against each other, or catch each other's eye across a crowded room, it was like, boom, instant electricity. We'd steal furtive glances, exchange knowing smiles, and occasionally sneak off for brief, stolen moments of intimacy, and those stolen moments were pure gold, a glimpse into a future where we could be together, uninhibited and unashamed. We never really had a big "what are we" talk, but we didn't need to. This wasn't some random, drunken mistake. This was real. But then, all too soon, the bachelor party came to an end. It was right before we were all about to leave, the last morning of the trip, and everyone was bleary-eyed and exhausted, packing up their suitcases and nursing hangovers, their faces pale after days of sun and booze. The condo was a mess, beer cans and half-eaten pizza boxes scattered across the floor, clothes strewn everywhere, and the air was thick with the lingering scent of sunscreen and stale tequila. Me and Noah were trying to act as normal as possible, joking with the guys, helping to clean up, but the unspoken tension between us was palpable, a silent hum that vibrated through the entire apartment. I kept looking at him, stealing glances when I thought no one was watching, wondering what would happen once we left this party, once we returned to our normal lives. Then, as if summoned by my anxieties, it happened. I was helping Noah pack his duffel bag when I felt this sudden, prickling sensation on the back of my neck, like I was being watched. I looked over at him, and that's when I saw Liam. Total jerk, always trying to be the center of attention, always pushing the boundaries, staring at us with this weird, knowing grin plastered on his face. My stomach dropped, plummeting to the depths of my intestines. He totally knew something was up. I tried to play it cool, forcing a casual smile, but inside, I was panicking, my mind racing, imagining all the possible scenarios. Did he see us kissing? Had he overheard one of our private conversations? Were we caught? Every time I saw him looking our way, I wanted to disappear, to crawl into a hole and never come out. That night after the party, the anxiety was gnawing at me, eating me alive from the inside out. When I got to Noah's car, ready to head home, he was already losing it, pacing around like a caged animal, running his hands through his hair, his face etched with worry. "Yo, did you see Liam staring at us?" Noah asked, his voice low and strained, laced with concern. I nodded, sliding into the passenger seat and pulling the door shut behind me. "Yeah, that was seriously weird." "You think he knows something?" "I don't know," Noah said, his voice trembling slightly, running his hands through his hair again, his movements jerky and frantic. "But if he does," he didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't have to. We both knew what that meant. We both knew that our secret was a ticking time bomb, and Liam had just lit the fuse. Even as we were about to leave this tropical paradise, even as we were preparing to return to our normal lives, our secret could explode, destroying everything we had built, tearing our world apart. One careless rumor, one whispered conversation, could ruin everything. Talk about scary. "We've got to be careful," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt, but honestly, what good would carefulness do now? We had been so careful, so discreet, and look where that got us. Noah was still freaking out in the car, his body tense, his voice trembling, his eyes wide with fear. What if that jerk starts saying something? What if everyone finds out? What will my parents do? I could tell he was just as scared as I was, if not more so. This wasn't just our secret anymore. This wasn't just about our feelings. This was about our families, our jobs, our futures. This was about our entire lives. Everything could change in an instant, and there was nothing we could do to stop it. Heavy stuff, right? "Look, whatever happens, happens," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt, forcing a semblance of calm into my voice. "If he knows something, if he says something, we'll figure it out together. We'll face it together." Noah looked at me, his eyes searching mine, and I could see the fear slowly receding, replaced by a glimmer of hope. He needed to hear that, needed to know that I wasn't going to abandon him, that I was in this with him, no matter what. Together, no matter what obstacles we faced. I scooted closer to him, and our shoulders touched, a small, silent gesture of support and solidarity. Suddenly, it didn't seem so bad. We had each other's backs, and that was all that mattered. But, man, that week back home was a total nightmare. The tension was almost unbearable, the anxiety a constant companion. First there were the weird texts, cryptic messages from unknown numbers, vaguely threatening, just unsettling enough to make your skin crawl, even if you couldn't quite decipher their meaning. By midweek, everyone was acting strange, distant, and withdrawn. Our friends were avoiding us, our families were unusually quiet, and the air was thick with unspoken judgment. I hadn't seen Noah all week, and I knew he was going through it, too, grappling with his own fears and anxieties. Liam must have spilled something, must have started the rumor mill churning, because by Wednesday, everyone was acting weird, giving us furtive glances and whispering behind our backs. Then, bam! Right after my shift at the auto shop, just as I was clocking out, it happened. I got this frantic call from Noah, his voice a mix of panic and urgency, telling me to meet him at the pier as soon as I could. No explanations, no details, just a desperate plea to come, quickly. I dropped everything, jumped in my car, and raced towards the pier, my heart pounding against my ribs, my mind conjuring up a million terrifying scenarios. I got there, and that's when I saw it. Noah was there, standing next to Liam, facing a group of our friends, and the vibe was so tense, so charged with animosity, that it could have ignited a powder keg. My stomach dropped, plummeting through the floor, and my legs threatened to buckle beneath me. My brain went totally blank, short-circuiting from the shock, as they all turned to stare at me, their faces a mixture of anger, disappointment, and disgust, like I was some kind of alien creature, a pariah who had suddenly been exposed. They knew. Somehow, some way, they knew everything. I was about to bolt, to turn around and run as fast as I could, when I heard Noah's voice cutting through the silence, calling my name.
"Are you with me?"
There's Noah, standing his ground next to Liam, looking mad as hell, but also surprisingly brave, a defiant fire burning in his eyes. Done hiding, Noah announced to everyone, loud enough that it echoed across the PA, his voice resonating with a newfound conviction. My heart did this weird, flippy thing, a mixture of fear and admiration, like, what was he doing? We were supposed to keep this a secret, we were supposed to be discreet, we were supposed to protect ourselves. But Noah, he was done playing that game. He wasn't scared anymore, not now, not ever. You should have seen Liam's face. His whole "I'm so cool" act completely crumbled, his smug grin replaced by a look of utter shock and disbelief. The pier fell silent, the only sound the gentle lapping of the waves against the pilings, but Noah, he was owning it, his gaze unwavering, his arm sliding around my shoulder, pulling me closer to his side, like he was saying, "Yeah, what about it?
What are you gonna do about it?"
"Let's get out of here," Noah said, his voice low but firm, pulling me away from the group. I followed him without hesitation, turning my back on our friends, ignoring the angry whispers and the judging stares, because for once, I didn't even care. Maybe this wasn't the smartest decision, maybe we were making a mistake, but right then, standing next to Noah, I felt like I could breathe again. We'd been hiding for so long, consumed with fear and worried about what everyone thought, but walking away from that pier, leaving our old lives behind, none of that mattered anymore. We had each other's backs, and that was all that counted. No more secrets, no more lies, no more living in fear. We got in the car, and Noah turned to me, his whole demeanor changing, his tough facade softening into a look of vulnerability and relief. His hand was still on my shoulder, his touch reassuring, and I felt like my heart was going to explode, bursting with a mixture of terror and excitement. Scared, but like, the good scared now, the kind of fear that comes with taking a leap of faith. Now what? I barely managed to get the words out, my voice trembling with a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. "Got an idea," Noah said, a mischievous glint returning to his eyes, a hint of the old Noah, the one who was always up for an adventure. I grabbed his hand, and he started the car and got back on the road and followed. After a second, I figured out where we were headed, and I was suddenly hyped, the adrenaline coursing through my veins. We were going to the beach, the very beach where all this craziness started, the place where we first admitted our feelings, the place where we shared that first, life-altering kiss. Noah didn't say anything, didn't need to, but once we got there, I totally understood. We parked the car and got out, the salt air filling our lungs, the sound of the waves a familiar and comforting lullaby. He turned to me, his eyes filled with a mixture of tenderness and defiance, his gaze locking with mine for a long, meaningful moment, and then, without a word, he kissed me. Classic Noah move, spontaneous and passionate, a declaration of love and rebellion. It was wild, a desperate act of defiance, kissing in broad daylight, right in the middle of a public beach, knowing that anyone could see us, which made it even better, somehow. Short and sweet, but it made all the stress and anxiety of the past week just melt away, dissolving into the ocean breeze. Noah pulled back, gave me a small, shy smile, his cheeks flushed with adrenaline. "We in this together, whatever happens?" I nodded, feeling those words resonate deep within my chest, anchoring me to the present moment. Walking away from the beach together, hand in hand, I knew we weren't out of the woods yet. People were going to talk, stare, judge, maybe even try to mess with us. Our lives were about to change in ways we couldn't even imagine. But right then, in that moment, it didn't matter. Noah and I had finally stopped running from who we were, from what we meant to each other. Sure, other people weren't going to make it easy, but whatever. We had each other, and that was enough. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe, like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Walking next to Noah, hand in hand, towards an uncertain future, I felt a sense of peace, a sense of belonging, a sense of hope that I hadn't felt in years. The weight may have lifted for a minute, but deep down, I knew this wasn't over. This was just the beginning. And the real hard stuff was coming. But still, together as one, we knew that no one could stop us.